Hey friends, we're going to go through a cute UFO story here. It's from the 1970s, and it's going to prove, if you believe the story, that the US government have technology way beyond the physics that you and I were taught in school. Now, this story, basically, this guy goes on a cigarette break, and we're gonna listen to the clip. He goes on a cigarette break, and he's in Lockheed Martin, friends, which is obviously they're like. So everyone always wonders, right? How does the U.S. government, how does it hide all these conspiracy stuff? Well, it's not the U.S. government hiding it. There are compartments. They privatize the contracts. So the government doesn't have anything because they know the government leaks all the stories. Remember Roswell and everything else. So what they do is they have private contractors. They have private companies where you and I can't walk in and just demand everything. Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, DRW, whatever the hell that is, okay? Whatever they're called, okay? Lou Elizondo has gone through lots of them as well. You know, Boeing as well, or the US, the big names in US, okay? Now, this story is cool. Let's go through it, friends. So this is basically a map of just what the whole US military complex looks like. But let's continue, okay?
To do the aerospace alley tour, this is the map that you'll follow here. And I just want to highlight this. This is the same article, 1983. Set for new boom cycle. Aerospace diversity should cushion city from eventual bust. So back in this Reagan buildup, 81 to 86 timeframe, these defense contractors could literally, Richard, write a blank check and they got funded because this is all of this Reagan buildup here. They got funded in multiple programs. A lot of these programs were born black, died black, and we'll never know anything about it. They were swept under the carpet. But what I want to highlight is something going on with an Air Force Plant 42. Plant 42 has a number of contractors. Lockheed Martin, primary player, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing. Now, the previous contractors at Plant 42 were McDonnell Douglas before they were bought out by Boeing, and then Rockwell International. So they built the B-1 bomber there. They had the space shuttle going on there. So this is, Richard, the heart of the military-industrial complex is where a lot of black aircraft aerospace programs are built, and then they're shipped over to Area 51 where they're test flown. So that's kind of the program here we want to talk about. We want to focus in on Air Force Plant 42, again, ground zero for the military-industrial complex. And this is the overhead aerial view. You can see the runways here. You've got Air Force Plant 42, and you are allowed as a citizen, as a taxpayer, to drive around this entire facility. Absolutely. You know, we as taxpayers, we own this facility, Richard. We own this facility. The United States Air Force is nothing more than a temporary custodian of these assets. We own the runways, we own the buildings, we own the facilities, we own the aircraft. We own this, Richard. So we
Someone mind telling them that?
Yeah, we have every right to question authority, Richard. We have every right. All right, let's continue on here. What we want to focus in on is Plant 10, Lockheed Advanced Development Company. I got this from the Palmdale Library, and we'll go to the next slide. If you look off to the left, Richard, you'll see a railroad, and this is the path that people can drive down on their cars. There's a road right next to that railroad, and a little bit off to the right of that railroad, Richard, you'll see Building 601. That's what we want to focus in on, Building 601. The right side of Building 601 is where this, according to Mark McCandless, this all went down. And he said that on the right side of Building 601, during a air show, he spoke to a gentleman who worked at the Northrop facility, which is off to the right, quite far off to the right. Northrop is the company that built the B-2 stealth bomber that was rolled out November 22nd, 1988. So it's at night, and there was some smog out. The lights in the area were backlighting the whole sky, and so it was a little bit light out. And what this gentleman said, and this is Lockheed Plant 10, you can see the highway, Sierra Highway off to the left. You've got that Building 601. So that just gives you an idea of where this all went down here. Here's the Skunk Works hangar. When you drive down that Sierra Highway, what we want to do, Richard, is look on the other side of this large Skunk Works building, according to this engineer who worked at Northrop Grumman.
Now, I have a feeling we're leading to a sighting of something very unusual.
Oh yeah, I got to
tell us what year we're talking here.
Yeah, we're talking about 93 timeframe here.
Okay,
and within this building, which was the Lockheed L-1011 hangar interior building, that's where they built the TriStar, the L-1011. It's the same exact Skunk Works hangar. What this gentleman described is he said that one night he was taking a cigarette break, and he said that there was a series of boom lifts that came out of this hangar. Hangar doors open up, these boom lifts all roll out. There were about 12 of them, all in a 360-degree circle. And then a man walked out. He shined a flashlight with a green beam. He shined it 3 times, and these boom lifts extended their booms out so that they were completely extended. And they had draped, Richard, a tarp connecting the tops of each lift, which created this perimeter screen. And then this gentleman said that a black contact lens about 100 feet in diameter dropped down into the center of all these boom lifts, and then the whole group, Richard, trundled back into the hangar. This is according to what this gentleman told Mark McCandlish.
So they created their own makeshift
Yes.
curtain.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly
and a kind of disc or lozenge shaped or something.
Yes.
Did you say it was black?
It was black. It looked like a black contact lens.
And it just like, did it come down silently, I assume?
It came down silently into the center of all of these boom lifts where there's this perimeter screen, and then the whole thing trundled back into the hangar. So instead of me just talking about this, let's go to the drawing. And this is the best that I could come up with, Rudy. This took place in 1992.
Wow.
So what this is telling us here is that they do have the technology. They have made the breakthrough. October 1954 probably was the date for the breakthrough on gravity research, probably sometime prior to that. Now, 2 weeks later, the consistency and the continuing going out with this guy paid off, because he took another cigarette break 2 weeks later, and the entire process, Richard, was reversed. So this whole group trundled out. The boom lifts came up, they formed a perimeter screen, a black contact lens levitated out at about 100 feet above the hangar, and then this thing took off like a spark on a grinding wheel, and this is all back in 1992. Richard, they've got the breakthrough. They've got the technology.
Over 30 years ago.
Yes, yes.
Yep. You know, Ben Rich, who was still alive in 1992, running Skunk Works over at Lockheed, famously said to a number of people at UCLA School of Engineering in 93, and also on his deathbed to Jim Goodall.
That's correct.
About how we have things that would make, you know, if it's been on Star Wars, Star Trek, he said we'd been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. He said that. He essentially said, you know, there are ours and theirs, 2 types of UFOs, and this is clearly one of ours.
And we have.
Wow. So that's real, by the way. Yeah, the actual CEO, he said we got technology that'll like put Star Trek to show. The CEO, man. Wow. This is 30 years ago. That's why, friends, when you see like frauds, like when you see frauds, friends, they're paid shills. He's always like, extraordinary evidence from the UFOs. That's how he talks about him, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a fraud, bro. Neil DeSoy Tyson, right? You're full of shit, bro. You're full of shit. Friends, do you know how many times we've seen scientists die, deathbed, family finds their paychecks. They go, oh, you were paid from the government, from NASA, secretly. Why? And then people end up researching. They go, oh, you were a UFO denier. You see, Vince, you got to remember, man, we're humans. We learn by osmosis. If we just know something is possible, we'll hack away at it to try figure it out, because we're all ultimately the same, you know, more or less the same. You know, yeah, we all bleed blood pretty much, okay? Some of us bleed blue like reptilians, right? So you see that, and that's why the military, they don't even want people to know it's possible to do something. They don't want people to know, because they just want to keep you dumbed down. And they don't want to think about it. They just want to be like, no, they don't exist, totally don't exist. Now, that CEO in 1992, I think that what they're referring to was the breakthrough, right? They had a breakthrough year to do that. Now, by the way, if you're wondering, like what the hell, what is this what is this like lens? That's so weird. Well, like, obviously, I don't know. I'm not there, but in these contraptions, in these ships, if you step inside, you might have like a big warehouse in there. They warp space-time in the bubble. So you have a bubble, so it looks like so you and I can only enter through a slit, but inside there's a giant space-time warp in there. Right? It's literally like one of those, the fantasy Alice in Wonderland movies. You know, you go through like this little tree hole and then inside is like a big thing. Yeah, that's what they were able to do. Now, obviously, if you go to any science school teacher, they'll go, can't do that. But you end up with Einstein's equations, they can all do this, friends, but it comes down to, how do you have the energy to move space-time? How do you do it? Well, that's a speculation. Do they have energy sources to do that? Clearly they do. Something's going on. Now, you even heard here Dickie Dolan, so Richard Dolan, what a national treasure. He even talks about how you have things like, they have the technology, friends, and there's our ships and then their ships, which is obviously the zookeeper ships, right? That's why sometimes when people see these UFO sightings, there's blinking lights. And that's how pretty much, like, you know, everyone in the UFO community, they all know, like, oh yeah, those must be their skunk work ones, because they have like that's a human thing. Let's have these blinking lights and stuff here and there. But it doesn't blow your mind that this is from 1992. They have stuff. They've already blown through it. Now, here's the thing, right? A lot of people don't believe it. And that's all right, because they can't think that there is a way, one, to keep these secret, as they already went through. They don't keep these secret. The government doesn't keep these, friends. It's private contractors. They contract them out. They figured out a long time ago. The government leaks everything. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, they also ask, hey, if they have the science here, how come the scientists don't go leak stuff? Well, friends, I'm going to ask you something. Do you love your family? Because I've got a spoon that can explode next to your head if you go and talk. They're all monitored, man. Remember, friends, I told you about, there was that one story, the military guy, it was him and like 12 of his platoon. He said one day, out of nowhere, they were like doing training and stuff, you know, military stuff. One day, his commando, they bring him into a tent. 12 of them. Okay, I forgot the exact number, like 6, 12, whatever it is. Okay, 12 of them go inside and they get shown, they just shut up, they sit down, no one's allowed to talk. They play a video. On the video, they show UFOs, like UFO ships, bombs exploding on them, dissecting UFO bodies, zoom up of UFOs crashing, all these other stuff, just aliens and stuff, but pretty much CIA material, right? The coconut intelligence material. Now, what ends up happening though is when the movie's done, they say the commando says nothing. And what ended up finding out was one of the guys that's telling the story, he 2 weeks later was on the phone to his family. And he says, hey, man, they showed us this really weird thing about, like, you know, I saw some really weird stuff. Because, like, I think it was like his mum. His mum was asking me, oh, have you seen, what's it like there? And he's like, he starts spilling about, they showed us this weird video about, like, some of these, like, alien explosion things. I don't know what was going on, right? Because you can't tell if it's real or not. So he's just talking, he's just showing it. Now, you're probably wondering, where does this lead to? Well, suddenly he gets removed from platoon and they move him off elsewhere. He never back allowed on the base. He never hears about the other 11 guys ever again. So he ends up thinking about it for a long time, and he was like, he never thought anything of it. And then, like, you know, he ends up finding out UFO stuff later on, and he ends up coming to the conclusion. He goes, oh my gosh, they were screening US soldiers to see who will spill beans and who will keep their mouth shut. If you keep your mouth shut, those are the types of people who they're going to use to either be security guards or work around this type of environment, because they know you're not a talker. But this guy obviously talked, and that's why he spoke. He spoke about it. You know, it's very smart how they figured out these types of personalities that are attuned to doing this stuff. As you get to see, right, even in this one, this black silicon thing, it was a guy having a cigarette break, right? They're just hanging out and stuff here and there, but you have no pictures or anything out here. Now, I know it's crazy, because even if there are pictures, fans, there have been many times people have had pictures. The pictures disappear. You know what they do as well? When you have a picture and you say you have a picture, people come in and say that they're all Fed agents, but you don't know. They pretend to be journalists. They pretend to be a girl, a prostitute, whatever. I'm not even joking. And many times They'll ask for the picture, or they'll be like, "Hey, send it to here. I know somebody at a news network. Send it to me." And when they send it, they never hear from them again. They just take it. Also, they intercept the files and pictures as well. So they wait outside that person's house, and they wait for them to send it through the mail. The mail gets intercepted many times. You know how many photos have been lost because of interception? But people didn't know back then. Now we know through the power of the internet, and I have a helicopter hat and a fluffy microphone and fluffy slippers. Now people know, oh crap, don't send anything out, make multiple copies of it. But they didn't know back then. They just thought, oh, this thing's, I have a videotape, I'll just send it out. Like it's, they don't know about the big industrial military complex out. Let's continue just briefly, friends.
Clearly
it's pretty
one of
cool.
ours.
And we have things that are 50 years beyond what you can comprehend.
Right, he said that.
Yes.
Let me ask you, do you have any theories about the mission of such craft that the United States are manufacturing? Like, what would the mission of this particular craft be? Have you wondered about that?
Command, control, intelligence, digital real-time reconnaissance. That's what I believe the mission is.
So it's a recon platform of some sort.
Very, very possibly, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it could make sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, what about
Okay.
weapons platforms? Anything like that?
Sure, certainly could be weapons platform. I mean, you're talking about a technology here where you could be to the East Coast in seconds with this technology.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, I mean, I don't know of any evidence that a weapons platform like this has been used in any of the U.S. forever wars that we've had over these last several decades.
Well, I don't think, Richard, they roll out the silver bullets, the trump card technology, the ace in the hole technology. They don't roll these out for local skirmishes. This is for a completely different thing altogether. And we have to throw out Newtonian physics and start thinking more along the line of different types of physics, something that is just not Newtonian physics. And that's why I want to go on to our next case here.
Yeah,
this is Wright Patterson Air Force Base, April 1962. This is seen by a group of exchange pilots that were part of the 354th Tactical Air Command Fighter Wing. This is Retrievals of the Third Kind, page 88, case A6 within Leonard's book. So just to set this up, you've got the wing leader. He's responsible for the physical well-being of his transfer pilots. And they're all running down this row of hangars at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base back in 1962. They're looking, Richard, for a fourth wall to complete this handball court. So they run down this row of hangars. One of these hangar doors was partially open. They run in and they see this 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that looks like a track and field discus. It's propped up on two engine test stands, he said. There was a string or rope wrapped around the outer circumference, and then there were military personnel with rifles guarding this thing, and they just accidentally run into this, which I thought was interesting. So I thought, let's see if we can do a full color rendering, and this is what we came up with. They're based on the dimensions from the transient pilot and the leader here. Now, what I thought was interesting is what this guy said about this whole scenario here. I want to go to the next slide to just give you an idea what was said here. The guard challenged by saying, "I don't think you're supposed to be here, sir." I replied to the affirmative, and we turned about face and departed, mumbling to ourselves that the good old U.S. had developed or had all along flying saucers in service. Richard, this testimony rings true to me. It really does.
Yeah, but then the question, it just begs the question, in service to do what? In what part? This is 1962. Right. So, again, the mission. I mean, there were UFO sightings throughout the Vietnam War. We know of that, but they don't appear to have been on the U.S. side, frankly. You've got statements from U.S. generals and senior officers from Vietnam stating, oh, yeah, we were aware of them. We referred to them as enemy helicopters, but they knew that they were not helicopters. So what would be the mission of our, if I can use that word, our flying saucers all this time?
Well, first of all, some of these seen in these hangars could be pre-production prototypes. That could be one.
Right.
The other absolutely could be weapons delivery, certainly reconnaissance, real-time intelligence gathering. These could be multiple missions because, Richard, when you control the high ground in a battlefield, you've won the war. You've got to control the high ground.
Yeah, but the United States has kind of not done very well in a lot of these wars. They didn't do well in Vietnam. They did great in Panama. They did great in Iraq in 1991. I don't know about any evidence that we were using that type of technology during those engagements. And it certainly hasn't gone nearly so well since then. So again, one has to ask, where is the evidence that these types of weapons have been used in American engagements? And I'm not seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, your comment about the enemy helicopters is correct. That checks out in the auto binder reports. That's what they were called. So there absolutely were UFO sightings during Vietnam by our Huey helicopter pilots. That is absolutely correct. Now, maybe this is an asset that they didn't know about. This is a black program. Difficult to say, but your statement about the enemy helicopters, that is correct.
Well, it's just,
See, friends, this is that's the mystery. They've had this for all this time. By the way, Bob Lazar works on it, and he says, man, they're painfully slow. I think that was in the 80s, but then they cracked the code. They made a breakthrough. I think he hinted about that once. Maybe someone made a breakthrough. There's a lot of deaths involved because people are like, warping space and time and stuff. They just probably crushed themselves into oblivion. We don't know. I'm sure there's like some weird stuff that's happened with that. But they obviously do have the stuff, but how much of it? And for what? Like, you don't know, man. It could just be their emergency Ace of Spades card. They're like, you know what? Let's throw these bombs out. If it only gets really bad, we'll use the tech. I don't think they need to use the tech ever because they're so far advanced. And like, we got to think about like, why? World domination? But you're not dominating. It's like they have their secret. Or they're putting America first. Is it that? Something's obviously going on. I don't think we ever have the full answers. But now you get to see, friends, that the funny part, right? That's why I'm so bullish on crypto, man. How do you think all of this gets funded? By tax? They got no money, friends. It's the money printer. That's how this all gets funded. Black budget here. And by the way, all the stuff on the accounts, half of it could be fraud. You don't know. The Middle East is the tornado cash of the US Army. So they need to do black budget stuff. Hey, go buy a $10 billion tank, send it over there. They do something over there. It gets basically sent out to another country. They can change the balance sheets, the debit and the credit and the asset and the liability, blah, blah, blah. It just makes its own way back and they can do that, right? But they get to hide that stuff. That's why actually they'll probably never go on a crypto standard because if we could all see the real transactions, no way. Interesting though. When it comes to this though, do you believe all of it? Like even said, there's too many of these cases now, friends. Like I think you're a retard if you don't believe this stuff now. Because I'm like, all right, okay, the first 10 cases, people are smoking crack. The first 50 cases, it's really strong crack. 630 cases reported from the underground submarines alone of underwater submerged UFOs. 630. You know that means if 99% of them are full of crap, 6 of them are real. How many thousands have there been? Come on, like you just at this point, it's very obvious, right? A lot of it is psyops. That's why it's very well within their power to do the fake alien invasion. It's well within their power. I wonder if we're going to see it in our lifetime. Leading up to it, right? They fly some UFO stuff, like, alien invasion. And like, I guess you're going to have to sign up all your rights to us. But who's ultimately in control? We don't know. Is it the lizard people? Is this what they want? Keep giving us things to be scared about so we hand over more rights of freedom, more rights of speech so that humanity advances long term. Yeah, we're one small chain on a long chain. It's amazing just to see this happening so slow. And I wonder if it's ever going to pick up the pace and people kind of start to figure this stuff out. Ultimately, we're still powerless, though. Powerless bums pretty much at the end of the day. Long on crypto, right? Like, subscribe, belly button, all. Catch you in the next one.